You know, the story of Ezekiel Elliot is really a story of extremes. It's a career that was absolutely defined by two powerful competing truths that I think perfectly capture the modern NFL.
On one hand, for this brilliant stretch of time, he was, without a doubt, the most dominant running back in the league. He was the engine of America's team, a true workhorse who carried an entire franchise on his back. But at the exact same time, his career was constantly shadowed by these incredibly serious off-field allegations that led to a massive public confrontation with the league itself.
So how did those two truths define his career? Well, that's the question at the heart of what we're breaking down here. Because with Zeke, his on-field brilliance and his off-field controversy, they're just impossible to separate. They are the story.
Okay, so to really understand why the Dallas Cowboys were willing to bet their future on him, we have to go back to the very beginning. We need to see just how unbelievably special he was as a prospect coming out of college.
I mean, the stats at Ohio State were just staggering on their own, but it was his performance in the very first college football playoff that made him a legend. We're talking 3 straight elimination games on the biggest stage possible, where he was just completely unstoppable. And it all ended with an absolutely historic performance to win the national championship.
But here's the thing that really separated him. It wasn't just the running. He could catch the ball out of the backfield, no problem. And most importantly, he was the best pass-blocking running back that scouts had seen in years. He was a complete 3-down weapon, a player you literally never had to take off the field.
So the Cowboys take this rare prospect with the 4th overall pick, a move that, let's be honest, went against most modern team-building wisdom. And for his rookie season, wow, it looked like the smartest decision they'd ever made.
His impact was immediate. It was explosive. Alongside another rookie, Dak Prescott, he led the entire NFL in rushing, was named a first-team All-Pro, and powered Dallas to a 13-3 record. He was everything they'd hoped for, and then some. But while he was just tearing it up on the field, a serious storm was brewing off of it. Just a few months after being drafted, these serious allegations of domestic assault came out. And even though criminal charges were never actually filed, the story was far, far from over.
And this is where the NFL's personal conduct policy becomes absolutely crucial. You see, the policy had been strengthened after the Ray Rice scandal, and it allows the league to discipline a player even if there's no criminal conviction. All they needed was what they called credible evidence that a violation occurred, and that was enough to trigger their own year-long investigation into Zeke.
And during that year-long investigation, other public incidents just kept adding to the scrutiny. Being seen at a legal marijuana dispensary, pulling down a woman's shirt at a parade, they created this public narrative of, let's say, questionable judgment that the league just couldn't ignore. So all of this builds and builds to 2 of the most defining moments of his entire career, a massive fight with the NFL, and then a massive payday from his team. In August of 2017, the NFL came to its own conclusion and bam, suspended Elliott for 6 games. This kicked off a long, ugly legal battle. On one side, you had the league absolutely determined to enforce its policy. And on the other, you had the Cowboys led by Jerry Jones, who circled the wagons and went to war for their star player. It created this huge, deep divide.
So get this, after the suspension, after the legal fight, after all of that controversy, Elliott holds out of training camp. He used his undeniable on-field value as leverage to get a history-making contract, and the Cowboys blinked. They made him the highest-paid running back in the entire NFL.
But just look at the structure of that deal. The Cowboys were paying for past performance, and the salary cap hit was designed to just explode in the later years. And that colossal $18 million number in 2022, it became a financial anchor, and it arrived at the exact moment his production started to fall off a cliff.
And yeah, that leads us right to the decline. A decline that really wasn't sudden, but more of a steady year-over-year erosion of the very traits that once made him so elite.
Just look at this. His average rushing yards per game were pretty much cut in half from his rookie season to his last year in Dallas. That consistent, game-changing impact was just gone. He went from an elite 5.1 yards per carry, a number that tells you he has big playability, all the way down to a plodding 3.8. Which is well below the league average. The explosiveness had simply vanished. And, you know, the final nail in the coffin was the guy standing right next to him in the huddle. His backup, Tony Pollard, was younger, he was cheaper, and by 2022, he was just demonstrably better. Pollard was explosive and efficient, and that made Elliott's massive salary absolutely impossible to justify.
So it was really a perfect storm for a decline, wasn't it? The inevitable result of being that workhorse back, the immense wear and tear from thousands of touches, a significant knee injury that he tried to play through, a declining offensive line, and finally a cheaper, better option right there on the roster.
And all of this culminated in his inevitable release from Dallas, a brief stopover in New England, and then a final homecoming attempt that really just put a definitive end to his Cowboys career.
You know, when the Cowboys brought him back in 2024, it was all framed as a veteran leader returning to the locker room. But that whole narrative just crumbled when he got benched for being habitually late, a sign that the focus and professionalism issues that sometimes popped up in his early career had unfortunately resurfaced at the very end.
Which leaves us with this final question. When you look at the whole story, the rare talent, the massive workload, the off-field turmoil, the record-setting contract, and that rapid decline, is Ezekiel Elliott's career the ultimate cautionary tale for the modern NFL running back? A story of a player who became a powerful warning for everyone who comes after him, maybe simply by giving his team everything he had.